This is Nancy Whang.
She is a New York-based artist, and she is in the band LCD Soundsystem as the keyboardist, and we think it's awesome. So yeah, we invited her on to talk about how she got to where she is.
Hi. That is accurate.
Fiona's dad said that, and we, in some of your articles we've been reading and stuff like that, that your story of the, how you came to become a musician with LCD Soundsystem was interesting. And I'm a real, ratty 90s girl. I came to New York in 1991, literally on a Greyhound bus. And stayed with my brother for a few months. I was very lucky to be able to stay with him for a little while, and then got a job in the East Village, and then, just very scrappily found my way.
Where did you take the bus from?
Where did I take? From Maine.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Coastal Maine.
Yeah.
I
bet that's a rough ride.
It is. I actually hitchhiked from harbor area, this island coastal area, to Bangor. It was about an hour. I hitchhiked. I got a ride from an ex quasi boyfriend. He ran out of gas halfway and was like, sorry, you got to hitchhike. And I hitchhiked.
Wow.
I ride for half the way. I hitchhiked the other half of the way to Bangor, Maine, and then I got on the bus.
Yeah.
But I know you're from a small town in Oregon, and you also landed in New York. I know it's broad, but can you kind of tell us a little bit about what that was like?
I took an airplane. I grew up in Beaverton. Yeah. I grew up in Beaverton, Oregon, which is like a suburb of Portland. And now I think Beaverton is a bit more on the map because it's where Nike headquarters is.
Okay.
And it has been there for a while, but when I was growing up in the 80s, nobody really cared about Nike. They made like a running shoe and stuff like that. So, this was before Michael Jordan. This is before Air Jordan. So anyway, so maybe now people have heard of Beaverton, but when I was growing up, it was just like a very, far suburb of Portland. And I came to New York in 1995 to go to school, NYU, which is to say that I went to NYU as an excuse to come to New York.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of my, the easiest way for me to get here and convince my parents that they should let me go.
And they were not down at first.
Well, I think they liked the idea that I was going to college, and they liked the idea that I was going to NYU, like a prestigious university. Yeah, that's kind of all they really cared about. I don't know that they really, had I given them other ideas about why I really wanted to be here or what I was, planning to do afterwards, I think maybe they wouldn't have been so enthusiastic, but I think they were happy that I got into school and that I went to school. And then for me, once I got here, I don't really remember when as a child I decided or it occurred to me that I wanted to be in New York. It just sort of, as far as I can recall, it was just a given, I just knew this about myself that I wanted to move to New York. And then other people I would talk to, like my friends or like other teachers or whatever, they would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like it's it's an interesting thing how I grew up in New York, so I don't understand what it's like to aspire to be in New York until I went to college.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I wasn't in New York. And I was like, okay, and now I get why everyone wants to be in New York. Like it never dawned on me that it was such a great place. But it's always interesting for me to hear that people are so drawn to it. And
what's funny are like the people, not to be a New York elitist, but like there are people who don't go to New York, they go to LA instead. And it's always like very confusing to me that you would make that.
Listen, I've come to realize through the years that New York's not for everybody, Yeah. And for some people, they give it a shot and they get their fill, they come and they stay, they do their time in New York, and then they've had enough and then they leave.
What about New York? I'm 35 years into living in New York.
Uh-huh.
What about New York inspires you? What inspired you then originally about the scene? 95 going, into the 2000s.
Yeah, I don't know specifically like what I was hoping to find or what I was expecting to find. It was just like a feeling that things were happening. Things have happened in New York and were happening and continue to happen. And I just wanted to be a part of just that energy, like not necessarily like any specific scene but just to be amongst that energy and experience what that was. And I was, like when I was in high school, I was really getting into like, like punk and new wave and like a lot of, those American bands came up in New York. And yeah, also, I mean, I feel a little like corny saying this, but like the Beastie Boys so cool.
Totally.
From New York and and it was kind of this funny thing where I was like, oh, like I'm gonna move to New York and maybe one day I'll like, meet a Beastie Boy on the street.
Yeah. Totally.
I did. And yeah, I know it's fine. It like I also like remember one time I like ran into Lou Reed in the East Village and just things like that. It was just like things that you imagine, like when you're a kid you kind of like fantasize about. And then it happens and you're just and when it happens it's exciting, but it's also like, oh yeah, that's that's what I would expect to happen walking down East 6th.
It's such an interest. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like it's so random. It's not like New York architecturally or like cleanliness wise is like so great, but it's just somewhere along the way, everyone cool decided to move there. And like now it's the thing, but living in another American city now, you can just see such a stark difference of there's no graffiti on the streets and like there's less people, cool outfits that you're just like, oh my God, whoa, what is going on there? And like all those little tiny things add up to like the inspiration for me. And it's just so random, but at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like, I think for people like me and your mom's age, there was a time when you didn't have a way to find your people. If you were lucky in whatever shitty, boring, backwards provincial town you're from, there was an other person who you could like connect with, who you felt was like your people. And even then, like, you'd gravitate towards, like outsiders or weirdos or like people who were like eccentric, whatever. And they weren't necessarily your vibe or, totally on the same, like
your brand of eccentric, but they were still eccentric.
Well, you just had to stick together and you had to find somebody, something to find a collective, find a community. There were like fewer ways for people to like feel that or even know that there were other people out there that like had any of the same interests as you. I can't imagine what that experience is like now for a young person, like having so much access to everything in the world and other people. It sounds a little like cliche to say like, oh yeah, like all the cool kids from the small towns all left their towns and moved to New York and all gathered together here. But that's kind of that is kind of what happens. You go, you don't feel connected to where you're from. You don't feel like where you're from it has enough for you. You have to go out and seek it. And the thing about New York, there's so much for so many different kinds of people. And even like through the different phases of your own life, you can like be into one thing for like a couple of years and hang out with this one group of people for all that time. And then you start shifting your tastes or your interests. And then you just like start hanging out down the block and it's a totally different world,
Yeah.
I appreciate that the most about New York is that there's this idea of it being for like freaks and weirdos and eccentrics and like punks and whatever, but there's also tons of other individualities, characteristics, interests for people to just kind of like find
Totally.
their. What neighborhood did you grow up in, Fiona?
My dad lives in Fort Greene, so like right on South Portland, and my mom lived there and now she lives in Bed-Stuy. So I always say somewhere in between Fort Greene and Bed-Stuy.
Right. So a Brooklyn kid. Yeah.
But I went to LaGuardia High School, which is an art school, and it's the center of all the freaks and geeks in New York. And high schoolers, and it totally speaks to your point because it's my brand of like artsy kid still had beef with like the next brand of artsy kid. And there was so many little niches of like different artsy kids. Just because we were all artsy didn't mean we got along, but a lot of us did.
I think what you were saying about they call it, I think, flatlining now with digital media. Social media, you can kind of touch digitally a scene for a minute and kind of get a sense of it, move on, you know, whereas in the olden days in the night, you had to like hang out. You had to get your reps in to be there. You had to be there. I think that's the
Yeah.
best way. You had
Yeah.
to actually be there. You couldn't just pretend to be there
Which,
or put a background on.
yeah, which totally leads into the fact that you met LCD and James totally randomly in this New York scene, and now it's like been many years.
Did you study
I
music
was
by you?
I was not studying music. No, I prior to LCD, my only musical experience was taking piano lessons when I was a kid. And my ambition musically was to just go to shows and buy records. Like that was it. I'd never been in a band before. It wasn't something that I was interested. I was in art school. I was trying to be an artist and make paintings and sculptures and be a visual artist in New York, which those dreams were very quickly dashed as soon as I got out of college. It was rough. I really, I think a lot about that time for me in school and transitioning out of school and trying to understand how to continue making art and be creative while also being just dead broke and trying to work and having, no space and no time to dedicate to this thing. And then just for me personally, not having developed a practice that was like sturdy enough to withstand all of the other stuff that was going, trying to survive. So anyway, like I had a series of jobs in various like corners of the art world, which is how I met James Murphy. Yeah, and even then, like we were friends for a couple of years before the band started, and it was just like hanging out and going to parties and going to shows and going to clubs.
And that's a perfect lesson on why going to parties and shows isn't the worst thing you could do in your youth, Mom.
I mean, you have to like to your mom's, but you have to like meet people and
Yeah.
have conversations and have experiences with people and like do things together and
You got to
And to do
hang
that,
out.
you have to get off your phone and go outside, which is not easy for people my age these days.
Press with other people and do stupid stuff and get into trouble, mild trouble. You don't want to get into too much trouble, but whatever, even getting into too much trouble. This was also, I don't know, times are different, but I realized I don't know what goes on in the city with young people and scenes and whatever, and nor should I. Like it's not for me to know about, and so every generation is always talking about the generation before them or like the city before them. Like, it used to be so much better back in the day. Now it's like,
it was like the 80s East Village was everything and CB's is cooked and it's over. And it was 91 and people look at me like, oh my God, you were there at the moment. And I'm like, it's always the moment and it's never the moment,
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like wherever you are.
It's so true. Like all my friends from New York are like, New York's a strip mall now and everyone looks like the same copy and paste bitches and what's going on. But I don't know, like
not entirely inaccurate.
Yeah.
but again, like there's still, I believe that there are just pockets and factions of people doing interesting things. It's just maybe you're not seeing it because it's not being presented to you. You have to go out and seek it. And, if you're in it, you know that it's happening. But if you're not, you don't. So,
and also I feel like it's in the outer boroughs.
Yeah.
I feel like when people move to New York, it's all about Manhattan. More and more, I feel like it's not where I'm hanging out at all when I'm back. Yeah.
And it's also, they call it, I saw this funny meme. They called it Work Island, which is really funny.
Yeah.
I like the idea that there's a scene and it's that the kids are always doing stuff. I would really like to believe they are and that they're gathering. And I'm seeing tons of cool people. It's like not even cool to be on your phone. I don't even think it's cool to be a digital person. I mean, anymore, really.
I've been hearing a lot of talk about people giving up their smartphones for flip phones and getting, getting more offline, which, I'm for it. It's great. I think it's
And there's a whole like Gen Z obsession with LCD now. Like, I've been the Knockdown shows the past 2 years and then the Brooklyn Steel shows. And this year, everyone I knew from high school was at the Knockdown shows and none of the other years, which is, like a whole new thing.
I have so many questions for young people who get into LCD. Like,
ask away.
Like, how does it happen? I mean, like, I know, the proximity, your proximity to us pretty close. So like, but I look out in the crowd and see teenagers, and I want to know, like, what is resonating? Like, what is it about the music that is speaking to you? Is it the sound of the music? Is it the lyrics? And if it is the lyrics, that's hilarious to me because it's a middle-aged man, talking about like his life experiences as a middle-aged.
Well, I think first of all, the song All My Friends is like totally blowing up on TikTok. So like that always leads to stuff. And there's a lot of like edits with it. And I feel like that's like the first point of the song starts to blow up on TikTok. So there'll be edits. The edits are usually romanticizing kind of 90s culture and like New York kind of grungy, people hanging out at parks. And it'll be like an undertone of teenage dream vibe. So that's one thing. And I also think that people want like an artist that no one else likes. So like when you like no one else their age, like not that obviously very popular, but no one else their age. So I think that once people started listening to that song, it's like, oh, I like LCD. Like I'm going to go to the concert. I'm obscure and no one in my class knows. But on the lyrics point, I just think that all the songs could be construed from either way because I grew up on it. So I like hear it from that like middle-aged man perspective for sure. But at the same time, New York, I Love You is like a breakup song and it's a song about a city. Like it could be mean so many things. And like, I know when I broke up with like my high school boyfriend in New York, I was like, New York, I love you, but you're bringing me down. Like, it applies to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't speak for everyone, but
I mean, it's just, especially for me, for us as the band, like like watching the evolution of the audience, the audience demographic it's just fascinating because, it started out, the crowd mainly looked like James. It was just a sea of Jameses. And,
like
and now, there's still this
kind of disaffected white men, like kind of, or disaffected is a strong word, but I don't, what would you call that?
I would say a little, act like former punks and indie rockers, who and like record store lurkers. This guy who used to be kind of like the eccentric weirdo in his town.
Yeah.
Finally hearing this guy like speak to them about their experience, just being kind of aged, and I feel like when we first started, James was like in his 30s, which at the time, like I feel like the age of an age, like the sort of geriatric nature of any given has been like pushed along. So like now being in your 30s doesn't seem like I think people still feel fairly youthful in their 30s. When I was in my 30s, I was like, I'm like, things are,
I feel like the age that, I mean, it's part of like the global raise in like living rates, probably like it just is totally different relative timing. Yeah. But I think that people are nostalgic my age, like not nostalgic because they lived there in the same way you guys were saying, nostalgic for that time period of before phone, when you had to just like go out, and the idea of being obsessed with a indie band that's like all 30-year-olds and you're 18, like people are like drawn to that.
No, it's really fascinating to me. And then especially the other part that I find really curious is the parent-child attendee, the kids and the parents that come together. I have so many questions for them too. Like, is this by choice? Are you happy to be hanging out together and liking the same band at the same time and at the show together? Like, is this an enjoyable experience for you, sharing this with your parent or your child? And then did the parent introduce the music to the child? Did the child introduce the music to the parent? Was it independent? And then they realized we're into the same stuff. And that was like an exciting moment.
I think it's all of the above. I think it's kind of how Taylor Swift and being at the football games like brought dads and daughters together. It's a New York example of that. Kids were getting to LCD and then your parents are like, wait, you know these people? Are you kidding? Like, we're going. And like, it has totally become like a family thing. When I was at the show, one of my best friends was there with their entire family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Well,
fun.
I think
And,
it's also because the shows, you started doing that series of shows close to the holidays. So
yeah, people are back from college.
November, December, if you're like a Brooklyn kid and you have a parent who's 52, 53.
Yeah.
And I think creating that residency, it's sort of a residency, essentially,
Yeah.
you know, at this
For
point.
sure. It is.
And so there's some tradition and ritual in it. And I think people are really craving tradition and ritual because we don't really have a lot of stuff that we all do. So I feel like that might be a little bit part of it.
It's like a medium, you know, when the residency is going on, you're talking about it with your dad and your friend. It's a medium for community. People are being like, oh my God, you went last night. I'm booking a ticket for next week. Like, we're all going to do this. It's so rare. It's a totally like,
going on Tuesday, I'm going on Friday. How was that night?
Yeah.
Oh, I went.
And then it's like a new conversation and a new bonding thing.
Right. That's great. We've pulled it off.
Right. Like this, I think there's something about the consistency that also makes it feel like, oh, this is my hometown. This is like my hometown band. If you're a New Yorker, almost, you know, and you can count on them.
Yeah, I like that. I think we're very proud of the fact that the first time we did these shows, started playing after the pandemic, there was this idea, maybe we had even talked about it before, just kind of like floated this idea of doing a residency. And so, we started at Brooklyn Steel and tried to play 20 shows. We didn't make it, but and then, every year it's just like, can we do it again? Like, can we do it again? And, we're always like biting our nails, like, like, is anybody going to come this year? Is it like, are people for it? But I think at this point, it is something that people can count on, and the multiple, having this shared experience where you're doing the same thing at different times. You can kind of like talk about this thing that you're doing, but you have your own experience because like, you went the first weekend and your friend went the last weekend, and
I have a friend who goes to Yola Tango Hanukkah shows.
Oh, yeah.
And they do I think it's 12 or 8. Is it 8 nights? 8 nights of Hanukkah? Anyway, but they go, and it's every year, and they do it every year during the nights of Hanukkah. So and some people go to all 8 shows. Do you have anybody that goes to like every single one of your shows? I'm sure you do.
I don't know. I haven't met that person. I'm sure there's a few that have come to most. Some of our friends, there are a handful of friends who come to a lot, which is great. And I'm so touched. It's a lot to ask of a person. Like, I mean, I couldn't do it. Like, I wouldn't be able to go to multiple live music concerts.
It's so fun to see your face. Because like
because you're always like so cool and like bang.
I experienced very like enigmatic cool girl, on stage. I'm trying to figure out how to ask a question of what's it like to be the cool girl, even though we all know
like she's the cool girl in the band.
We all know there are no cool girls because once you get to know everybody, everyone's just like a lunatic. But you know what it like. Everyone's got insecure. Everyone's like living their lives.
I mean, when even before the bangs, I would often get described as like aloof and cool and like chilly or like whatever. And it was mostly, that was just the face that I made when I was concentrating really hard. Because like the first like decade of the band, like I would have horrible stage fright and would be so nervous about playing and worried about screwing up and whatever. So it was just me just in like just pure laser beam focus on playing the show. And that was just what my face looked like when I was really concentrating so hard.
Yeah. When I played bass in high school, and everyone always said I looked confused. My resting face was like, so not as cool, but I get the concentration part of it for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there is just a consummately just a cool thing when you are the girl in the band and it's the guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's always like that can be that's like sticky territory too. Like in the beginning, I feel like, there was this generation of and like, music, especially during that time, like, 90s, early 2000s, there was like sort of a faction of women in music. There was like, women who formed their own bands and were like empowering themselves and like, trying to like create the space for themselves. And then there were other bands that, were like mainly guys, but maybe there was like one or two girls in it. And I think in those situations, often what happens, especially if you're the only girl, what you try to do is just fit in and be one of the guys and like try not to have any special needs and try not to be and like have any like just you're just trying to like roll with the punches and like you're cool, you're chill, yeah, yeah, she's cool, she's just like one of the dudes. And like for me, like I would take a lot of pride in that. But then after a while, I was like, maybe a little too late for my liking, just kind of realizing like, oh, but you know what? I'm not one of the guys because I am in fact not a guy.
Yeah.
I have
surprising to everyone, but I am not a guy, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got, different needs than,
I feel like
that
generationally, because I also, came up in in the 80s and 90s, and it was like, I feel like I just realized 10 years ago I'm not a guy. Like I'm like, oh my God, like
yeah.
I am not a guy. And we grew up, I don't know. I grew up like you can do anything. What did we used to say? We can do, if anything boys can do, we can do better. I don't know if you remember that, or like,
Yeah.
it was like very women, feminism, like it was just, I don't know how everyone grows up differently. And there's tons of people that grew up in the same time period that I did that did not have that experience, that had really conservative parents or whatever. But, I was very steeped in a very, pretty liberal politically environment. And it was always like, you're just like, I have sons, I have daughters. It's all the same, and,
Right.
and you're a girl, go make money, go chase your fortune, go be whatever you want to be. And which is great. But I never felt like I got messaging to be a woman that was empowering or specific to being a woman. It was,
for sure. Exactly. Yeah. It was like, this idea that like you're one of the guys, like you're tough and you're strong and you're like independent and you're,
badass, like all this, you're a badass. I'm like,
yeah.
Not,
but you know what? Sometimes I wanted to put on makeup and there was no mirror or a light in the room, and to like, ask for to like I didn't want to ask for these things because like, oh, like I need to apply my mascara, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which is so important. You need to apply your mascara. Are you kidding?
But this idea that like, oh, like I don't wear makeup, like I don't need to, because like I'm just like one of the, like that kind of thing where you want to fit into this like status quo.
I feel like the worst thing to be was high maintenance. The worst thing anyone could ever say about you as a girlfriend,
but that is
as a friend, as a worker, she's so high maintenance. And so
that is a descriptor that can only be applied to women. Men, 100%. You can't guy high maintenance. That's just not what you call difficult men. You're whatever.
They're clear. They would say, wow, they have real clarity about
they're direct. Yeah.
Like I'm so impressed when somebody's like comes in and they're like, I need X, Y, Z. I need this and I need this. And they're clear.
Right. At worst, like a guy's like, he's he's a dick. Like that's the worst.
Yeah.
As he could be if he's like, difficult or demanding or, whatever. He's like, yeah, he's just kind of a dick.
But a dick can run a company. No one has
Right.
like it's totally
You can
fine.
still, there's still some amount of respect that you have
Yeah.
for a fucking dick,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the worst thing you could be called is high maintenance. Like God forbid that you,
Yeah.
So what was it like when you finally were like, I need a mirror? Like, were they like, cool, yeah? Or were they like, huh?
Well, there were a lot of things happening around at the same time, and like the inner dynamics of the band, but also in the world at large, like this was, there was a lot of shifts happening. And so it felt a little more, there was more room being made. And then just like kind of on a kind of practical level, we just had more people to help us and support us and
Right.
so for me, if I needed something, I could just ask for
Ask
something.
for it.
And also,
Yeah, you have-
for the longest time, I was the only woman in the entire organization. It was me and like 5 other guys,
Wow.
sometimes 7 other guys, like the band, and then like, whatever, like crew, like tour manager, front of house engineer, driver, whatever. It's just like the only female. So then when more women started coming into the fold, it became a lot easier for there to be like a collective voice. Not that, like we all wanted the same thing, but there was just more space, understanding like, oh, hey, there's some women around here, like,
Yeah.
it's not just Nancy.
Yeah.
It was an interesting realization to have. It just kind of spoke a lot to me about just myself, like how I navigate through the world, how I had throughout my life, and how I continue to. It really made me kind of like reevaluate like the amount of space I wanted to take up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue to the kind of big question we like to talk about of
But what would you tell someone who doesn't know all that you know now?
big question.
It's
Yeah.
a hard one. It's a hard one.
Their state. Like, there's a lot of talk right now, like women's kind of wellness culture of like how to take up space, how to be bigger, how to say no is a complete sentence, stuff like that. But like,
But also, instead of positive words being ambitious, direct, positive words are sensitive, emotional intelligence, all of that stuff. Like this is kind of off topic, but to make those words that are feminine words as equal weight as the words that we describe powerful men as.
What is the experience that you're having? I guess like, I mean, you're in school, so that's sort of, it's a special environment. Still, like, I guess like what I would want to know, like, how do you
navigate as a woman in this world at my age?
It's like, yeah, as yourself, like, how do you feel when there's like friction, or you get, something, you push up against something that, pushes back, like how do you deal with it, and how does it work out for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never really been scared to stand up to a man. I have been scared to stand up to a woman. I think that the complexities of female friendship, and like if it's a boyfriend or whatever, I'm like, fuck you, dude. Like, what are you talking about? If it's a friend and I feel double crossed, I like am completely paralyzed, have no idea how to act. And I think the same goes in like a business environment. Like I'm working my first like kind of 9-to-5 job right now. It's like a part of my school program, and my entire team is women. So I'm mostly interacting with women at school, in all my classes, with my friends, and at work. So I feel like it's a double-edged sword of like, I don't even interact with men besides my dad, my brother, my boyfriend. And I have no fear because maybe I don't encounter it. Like, I just feel like, especially being in like, I'm in a more creative field. Like I study media and screen studies and journalism, and my job is working in the social media of the Attorney General of Massachusetts. So it's like, it's all like creative stuff. And I think that women are more drawn to that maybe now. And I don't even know if that even makes sense, but that's kind of how I feel about it. And I also grew up as like the cool girl with the guys. Like I was a major tomboy. I wore board shorts and no shirt at the beach until I had boobs, basically. And like was always like running around with the guys. And like I had a brother, so like was always like that. And it's definitely carried on into my kind of adult life. I don't think I'm an adult, but like I am more comfortable talking with guys than maybe my female counterparts that like grew up with sisters and stuff like that. I'm not really like scared of the male entity at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like that's similar. Like I have two brothers. So I grew up with two brothers who were much older than me. And so I'm very used to being in that dynamic with like, and like even I felt like even when with LCD, when we first started, it was all these guys who are older than me. So it was a very similar dynamic of like being like the kid sister with these like hanging out with her like, older brothers. And it was something that I was very comfortable with and I really enjoyed. And I did feel very protected in that environment, in the band and in my family. But I also, as I got older, I realized that kind of protection was the idea of like equity wasn't quite, like it wasn't, didn't quite play out like that, like I don't know. I mean, like, given your environment, having a good understanding of yourself and your own needs and desires and your own sense of self, which like that's a huge thing to embody, like I still sometimes I'm just like, who am I? And like, what do I really want out of this situation? Or like, who, like, what am I, what is this? Who am I in this? All this stuff. But like having a sense of self and like knowing who you are and what you need and being able to say like, even if you feel like kind of like out of place or outnumbered, to have, to like not be afraid or even if you are afraid to like, have the courage to push through that fear and be like, no, this is what I need, or this is what I would like to see or see happen, or
I'd like to try that. Let's try this. I just had an idea. I find myself not trusting my own ideas. And I've kicked myself so many times because I've thought it and I've been like, that's a really good idea. And then I thought, no, it's not a good idea. 2 seconds later on the call, I hear somebody else say the idea. And it's like they say the muse visits. And then if you don't open yourself up to the muse and let it do, then it goes and visits someone else. That ideas are like fairy dust kind of, whether it's a creative idea and that happens to me sometimes even with people, like I should call that person and then I don't. And then 2 days later, something happens and I'm like, I knew I should call. I had it in my head that day to text them or call them and I didn't do it. And it's the same thing with creative ideas. And I think in a group environment, particularly with men, but also with women too, it's interesting because I do find myself being way more codependent with women. Like, are you good? Are you good? Are you good? Whereas, I mean, just, for me, like a woman being mad at me or not happy with me, it's like so painful, whereas a guy, I can like, be
right
like,
now you're like,
Where
well,
are you? Are you kidding?
dick, what a dick, it's like with her, it's like, oh my God, it's just such a deeper cut, for me. Creativity in the moment, speaking your idea. There are no dumb ideas. Like, that's tricky. Imagine in a room full of cool dudes,
I guess, that's the thing. It's like, don't be afraid of looking stupid.
That's a great one. It's so good.
That feeling, like I used to, I still get it, but like that embarrassed feeling where you stick your foot in your mouth, or you just like, I don't know, you just say a dumb idea, or not even the ideas, you just get a reaction that is just like devastating, and like the humiliation that you feel in that moment. I used to be so paralyzed by that and so fearful of that experience, and like, I could like feel like my ears getting hot, and like that whole thing, and being afraid of that reaction, holding back. But as I've gotten older and my memory has gotten worse, like all of those humiliating moments that were so devastating, I was like, I'm never going to forget this. I was like, I can't remember. And now when it happens, because it still happens, but now when it happens, I get, that initial like wash of like, oh, it's just like, I want to be buried in the ground right now. I like remind myself, I'm going to forget about this moment. Like, I can't wait to not remember that this happened. And, so like, and usually that's like, however much time passes, like, you kind of either forget, or that humiliation it's just less. And you're just like, whatever. And you also have like gone on to live your life, and you realize that nothing
You
bad
didn't
You don't
happened.
die.
die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're fine. You're good. Even,
Okay, I'm clocking it. I'm
Yeah.
clocking it.
Yeah. So like, don't be afraid to be embarrassed.
I'm into like, is it cringe or is it a reflection of your internalized shame? Gulp.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
cringe is cool now. And I think being,
Yeah, everyone who was cringy in high school are like the most successful people now, like already.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And like being sincere and being direct and being like, no, I really like being with you, or I really would love to get to know you. It's like being really straightforward and like sincere.
Yeah.
Feels like
Yeah.
the
Even with friends, to like go up to someone in a class and be like, hi, can we be friends? Like,
Yeah.
no
Or-
one does that, but like we totally should.
feel
Right.
myself like drawn towards you. Can we meet? Like, I don't, it's so dorky. I feel like 90s ironic, like hipster cool vibes are like, they're a little still, you know what? When you're getting your reps in and you're hanging out with people so much, you can do that, but hi, this is little Penny. When our time together is so fleeting and you don't know if you're going to see anybody again because they're going to go back into their digital hole, it's like our
Right.
time to actually connect is so precious that I feel like we have to use it well. I think
Yeah.
that's maybe part of it. This was awesome. Thank you, Nancy. I feel like I would so many more things.
Yeah. We answered all
You're
of
the
life.
coolest. Basically, you're the coolest forever. You're cool. You're cool.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to, I'm excited to like talk to other women about whatever, what it's just like to live our lives.
100%. Yes, that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're talking about. People keep saying, "What's your podcast about?" And I'm like, what do you want it to be about? Because it can
Yeah.
be. But it's kind of that existential thing of like, what the fuck? Like, what matters? How do we do this thing? This thing is like a tricky thing, being alive and being a person and following your dreams and, mattering or not mattering. Like there was some of their film and a bunch of stuff was like this existential kind of like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what
is it for? I mean, nothing, but also, so what?
Nothing but like everything, right? It's like, so why don't we just like show up, up and take a risk and, go to New York and for one thing and end up being in like the coolest band ever. Like you just don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Say yes to new experiences.
Yeah.
Say yes to, and don't be afraid to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Or be afraid. But, just
they say
do it anyways.
Afraid. Do it. Just do it afraid,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which you did.
Be afraid and do it anyways.
Then you got to play Madison Square Garden. I was at that show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the last end, the final show.
Yeah.
That was such a good show.
It's wild. It's so funny that was, that's a long time ago now, and such a weird, like now, such a blip kind of in like our, like the timeline of the band. But now I go there, I go there to watch Knicks games, and I like, I'm
crazy.
And I like Harry Styles is doing 30 shows.
I know, I saw that.
Wow.
And, yeah, and I remember after that show, I was a little depressed because I was like, what if this is the best thing that I ever do? I know people are like, but that's amazing that you did that. You get to say that, that you did that. I'm like, yeah, but
it was 3 hours of my life.
Yeah, but like now what? Now what? That was like, it was like, when was that? That was like 15 years ago,
Yeah.
So, like at the time I was like, there's still so much life in front of me. Like, how do I what do I do now? But
Well, I think we touched on a cool thing about the way LCD does create community in New York. There's a cool thing there. I like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.